There are several major barriers that prevent Black women from getting the diagnosis and care that they need. And the consequences are actually really significant. One of the biggest issues is that ADHD in Black women is often completely overlooked, or worse, misdiagnosed as something else. Like Dr. Littman referenced earlier, women generally don't want to be observed. And Black women at times make it a point not to, or specifically are taught not to be observed. And that's in order to navigate some of those safety concerns that are pretty real in terms of racial and gender biases. And typically, they are at fault for a lot of that, as society might have it. And because of that, because we're still working through like that classically held view of ADHD, many clinicians don't immediately see it. Instead, they misinterpret the symptoms as mood disorders like anxiety, depression, like we've mentioned before, or even worse, bipolar disorder, which is a pretty stigmatizing mental health diagnosis. Actually, doctors Skoglund mentioned how these fluctuations in hormones can contribute to symptom presentation that can actually mimic some of these manic symptoms that clinicians can utilize as a basis for diagnosis. I actually had a client who was misdiagnosed, and one of the key things that she noted was this feeling of wanting to run to City Hall and back. And that was taken as a manic symptom when really she was just trying to describe the type of energy that tends to flow through her body, which is more hyperactivity than it is a manic symptom. And so this is particularly dangerous because these diagnoses come with complete different treatments. So instead of receiving some of those helpful interventions, which was likely already difficult for a Black woman to even get into an office to say, hey, I'm having these difficulties, what they tend to face is being prescribed medications or even being in therapy modalities that don't actually address their actual challenges. So that leaves them feeling frustrated and even more misunderstood. Like I mentioned, I've worked with some of these women who were given multiple mental health diagnoses over the years without anyone actually considering that ADHD might be a root issue. This actually delays access to the right treatment and profoundly damages the self-esteem. It becomes more of something is inherently wrong with me, when in reality, it is just their brain is working way different than anybody else's. Secondly, Black women often don't recognize their own symptoms of ADHD because they've been so conditioned to push through struggles on their own. And symptoms tend to align with society's stereotypes about Black people as a whole: emotionally unstable, lazy. Many of us grew up hearing that we had to be twice as good to keep up and to be recognized as even half as much as a person. And so when executive function issues make it hard to keep up, instead of seeking help, we internalize it as a personal failure. I just need to try harder. I just need to grind. I need to prove that I am not who they think or say I am, which leads to overcompensating, overworking, overachieving, and constantly masking these struggles to appear competent. And that works until it doesn't. Eventually, that leads to this burnout and this anxiety, this feeling of I am a failure. And sometimes even the physical health issues that we're mentioning can pop up, like these migraines, chronic fatigue, high blood pressure even. And now folks are even talking about this connection with autoimmune diseases and the impact of chronically high levels of cortisol in the body. It's an exhausting cycle, and that many Black women don't even realize is tied to undiagnosed ADHD. And lastly, we can't ignore that many Black women don't seek out care due to this well-founded mistrust of the healthcare system. Black women have historically been over-pathologized and mistreated in medical settings, and that history hasn't disappeared. Many women fear just being dismissed, judged, over-medicated. And so tend to avoid even seeking out a diagnosis because they don't even know who to trust. And for neurodivergent brains, it's all or nothing with us, right? If the task looks daunting and is riddled with high probability of rejection or harm versus help, do we take the chance? Usually we don't. And so we see that those long-term impacts just are massive for Black women, and just the continuing deteriorating mental health. Career tends to then suffer because we're trying to keep up in all of these different areas in our life. And it's hard to figure out, is this me? Is this my brain? What is actually happening? Am I just a failure? And so it causes so many different complications in your life that even relationships are difficult, because if I can't express how I'm feeling, why I'm feeling, how do I expect anybody else to understand it? And so in a community where social connection is especially important because of the historical othering, many Black women feel isolated and misunderstood, and then they don't necessarily have these tools to be able to even figure out, how do I get myself out of this hole?
That perspective is so valuable. Thank you so much, Dr. Miller. And to dovetail on your last point, we got a comment from one of our attendees today who said, as a Black woman, I have hidden my ADHD by creating friendships to help me complete tasks. I was diagnosed at the age of 55 and just started taking medication. I'm still trying to figure out an appropriate therapy for myself. So that leaning on community is really clear in that comment.